What's up guys, it's Chris here. In today's video, we're going to be examining a problem I'm having with an investment that hasn't been performing how I've wanted it to, and maybe you can relate with some investments that haven't worked out like you thought and maybe even lost you money. So we'll take a look at what went wrong, why I'm looking to sell the share and reinvest it elsewhere, and at the end of the video I will show you the 6 new different investments that I'm putting the money into, and I'll tell you which ones they are, why I'm buying them, and we'll be investing around 10,000 Rand in those companies live and in real time. So let's get started. Like many other finance channels, we cover things like the markets, the news, we share tips and tricks and tools to be a good investor. But here on Casual Cash, we do one thing that tends to set us apart, because if you're going to talk the talk, then I think it's important that you also walk the walk. And that's why in our videos, we go through my own investing process and follow the buys and the sells and successes and failures, all down to the rands and cents, so that you can learn from the bad and possibly follow the good. So in today's video, we're diving into my own investing portfolio to show you my personal journey and path towards reaching financial independence. And if you want to follow my journey and how these investments turn out, good or bad, be sure to subscribe to the channel to follow along. Okay, so let's get to the elephant in the room. Which one of my shares are we talking about, and which investment is not turning out the way I've wanted it to? So back in June 2021, I invested in an ETF called the New Funds Retway Global Property Fund, which was eventually taken over by Satrix and renamed as Satrix. Now back then, this was, like the name says, an ETF that invested in real estate investment trusts from all around the world, and when I bought it, it was an ETF that didn't pay dividends. The basic theory was that the property fund would reinvest its dividends into growing its share price. Let's say the shares were 1 Rand, then you would invest 100 Rand and get 100 shares. So instead of getting paid 5 Rand in dividends every year, the share price was supposed to grow in theory to 105 Rand for your shares, and the fund would reinvest that 5 Rand. So the next year you would get 5 Rand 25 that would get reinvested again to make 110 Rand and 25 cents, and so on. Not including the growth of the value of the buildings, which should grow the share price as well. So the basic idea was a fund based in property where the share price would grow exponentially by reinvesting its own dividends. So I invested about 10,000 Rand at the time, and it started doing quite well and went into a good profit that you can see in this part of the graph here. But then in January 2022, it started to move downwards along with the rising interest rates around the world, and then in May it paid a dividend of 206 Rand, which was odd, and it continued to do that again in July and October and January for 467 Rand that year, or about 4.6% dividends, which was strange, but not bad dividends. However, as time went by, the share price continued to follow a downward trend, which in some ways is expected with property funds and rising interest rates. But then about a month ago, I did a video comparing property funds, and this is what I found out.
The global funds tended to have better capital growth, and as a result they had a lower dividend percentage. Because here we can see the OneVest Global and the Signia Global with the absolute lowest dividend income at 2.72 and 2.38% respectively, but they also had the highest one-year growth at 12.43 and 12.46%. But in saying that, it seems like my Satrix Global didn't get the memo because it slightly contracted over the 1 year, which is against the trend. So maybe I need to look at that and potentially move it.
So over the last 2 years, I have lost 6.88% in the share price, and although the dividends aren't bad, they are currently paying about 3.85% a year in dividends, and for a property ETF that is significantly below funds like the Satrix Property Fund, paying over 8%, and even USA property companies like Realty Income paying 5%, and Simon Property Group paying 6%, and even Fairvest in our portfolio, which is paying over 10% dividends a year. So the share price isn't giving me returns, the dividends are below what it could be getting elsewhere, and this ETF is performing worse than its competitors in the global property funds. So it got to the point, for me at least, where it doesn't make sense to keep it anymore because I could be getting better returns somewhere else. But luckily, although the share decreased by 685 Rand, I also made 730 Rand in dividends over 2 years, so we're technically selling at a 50 Rand overall profit. Now, if you are planning to click away from this video, don't do it until I have told you this next part because it's very important. But if you are planning on clicking the like button, which helps the video to do better, I'll wait just a second. Okay, so here is what I need to say. If you have been following this channel, you will know that I very rarely sell shares. I can count on one hand the sales I have done in the last 2 years, and the main reason is that statistics show that you have the best chance of making money and lowest chance of losing money the longer you hold on to your investments. Also, the compound effect you get from share and dividend growth gets better the longer you hold. My investing strategy is always to find good companies and ETFs with solid fundamentals that have a good track record of returns and to dollar cost average in and hold over the long term. And I think that if you are buying and selling often just because the grass looks greener on that other hot new share, then you might not get the good long-term results that you are looking for. And I think that is very important to state. But for me, this ETF that I have held for over 2 years is not fulfilling what it was supposed to be when I bought it and has changed and underperformed to the point where I want to move it somewhere else. So with that being said, let's head into EasyEquities and we're going to go to the investments here in the shareholdings. We're going to click sell and go to the bottom here and select the full amount or 100% of the shares and click sell. Alright, there we go. But now let's get to the fun part and I'll tell you where I will be investing this 10,000 Rand and why. So if you are a subscriber to the Casual Cash Club on Patreon, where I share my daily share purchases and sales, then you will probably have a good idea where I will be investing next. And if you're not part of the club already, here's a quick ad.
If you want to download a spreadsheet that will help you track all of your investments and their income automatically based on the numbers and companies that you put in, along with graphs and charts that fill in all by themselves to track your progress and your journey towards financial freedom or retirement, then you can click on the link in our description to join the Casual Cash Club on our Patreon. I also post all of my buys and sells in real time, like this one today.
Okay, so here is your first hint. After the sale, I headed straight over on EasyEquities to the menu and clicked on Inter-Account Transfers and EasyFX. I then selected that I will be transferring the proceeds over to my investing account in USD, which is US dollars or my American account. So over the last few months, I've been posting in the Casual Cash Club that I have been adding money and topping up my shares in the US, and I have been giving explanations of why. Now, if you haven't invested in the US or you haven't seen the latest movements in the markets, the US exchange has been seeing the early signs of good growth, in my opinion, after 2 years of being battered by high interest rates, high inflation, and certain banks going out of business. The USA markets and ETFs have started to see some green shoots. The latest data out of the Fed has shown that both headline and core inflation is coming down closer to the ideal level of 2%, and while it is not there yet, it is showing that the policies being put in place are working, and although they just recently had a hike in interest rates, and there will probably be another plan for later this year, many analysts are predicting that we are coming to an end of the cycle of raising rates and getting closer to a pause at the top before eventually starting to lower rates again, which some analysts have suggested could take place during the course of next year. So, while the markets are down, and while we are seeing the start of good growth and better operating conditions for business on the horizon, I'm taking the opportunity to top up my long-term holding shares in these markets. Okay, so here is my USA portfolio currently, and as you can see, all of my investments here are doing quite well overall. I've got 6 different investments, all of them are in profit and all are making various levels of different dividends. 2 of these are purely for dividend income, and we're going to buy some additional shares in these and top them up right now. Those ETFs are the Global X Nasdaq 100 Covered Call and the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income. These are ETFs that also use something called call options to bring in the best income possible and typically minor share price growth, although these have done well in that aspect as well. These both will bring in usually around 10 to 13% dividend income a year. Then the other 4 shares here are my long-term holdings that I plan to dollar cost average and continue to buy into over time and hold over the long term to build both my capital wealth and my passive income. So we're going to start with Realty Income, which is an American property company with properties all over the world that has a great long-term share price and pays around 5% dividends a year, but the best part is it pays monthly like a second salary. Next, we're going to top up our shareholding in the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. This is an ETF that holds some of the best and most stable dividend paying companies in the USA, and here you get some good share price growth of the ETF with a pretty solid 3.5% dividend income a year, which is not bad for a USA ETF which typically have lower dividends. Our next share purchase is going to be Simon Property Group, which is a property company that owns buildings in 24 different countries, and apart from having a brilliant dividend of around 6%, has also had great share price growth of 10% in the last 3 months, so we're going to top up that. And last but not least is the S&P 500, or the 500 largest companies in the USA. This index fund ETF only pays around 1.5% in dividends, but it's there mostly for capital growth, and in the last 6 months this index fund has grown by over 11%. So in this particular case, I am more than happy to sell my holdings in the Retway Global Property Fund and reallocate that money towards a selection of shares that I've been dollar cost averaging in for the long term, and I'll be receiving some higher dividends and passive income from this section as well. And guys, that is it for today's video. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and you can check out the link in the description for the Casual Cash Club to follow my daily share buys. But until then, I'll see you guys next time, as always, on Casual Cash. Cheers.